Hello, everyone, and welcome to DisrupTV. My name is Vala Afshar, Chief Digital Evangelist for Salesforce and your co-host for the next hour. We welcome you to join us on Twitter at DisrupTV Show. Send us your questions so that Ray, myself, and our distinguished guests can answer them live using hashtag DisrupTV. We also have, I think, over 160 interviews on our podcasts. So check out our podcast as well on SoundCloud. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host, Ray Wong. He's the best-selling author of Disrupting Digital Business. He's the CEO, founder of Constellation Research. He regularly contributes to Forbes, ZDNet, Harvard Business Review, and he's one of the best follows on Twitter at RWANG0. Welcome, Ray.
Hey, thanks a lot. And we are doing the live mobile edition here from the New Jersey Turnpike. So I'm here with my awesome co-host, Vala Afshar, as he mentioned, but he's been too kind. He is the top CIO, top CMO influencer for the last 2 years. And of course, definitely a big contributor to Huffington Post. And of course, if you haven't seen his book, search for it on Amazon and read it. It is awesome. All right, so who do we have today? We've got another awesome lineup. Who do we start with today?
Yeah, so we're going to start the show with an amazing CEO of a startup, Avi Goldberg. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Dispatch. He's a serial entrepreneur. Dispatch is a company in Boston. We'll learn more about Dispatch. Avi's a serial entrepreneur and a proven operational leader with over 15 years of experience building and operating leading technology companies. I had a privilege of going to Dispatch and really firsthand experience the culture of the company and his leadership style. And I got to tell you, it was amazing. He's currently, building a Boston-based startup, an enterprise technology company that's empowering home service industry to meet the rising demand of the modern customer. Again, we'll learn about Dispatch throughout the show. In 2007, Avi co-founded and was the managing partner of Great Point Ventures, which focused on the formation, development, and commercialization of promising technologies and ideas of broad spectrum and investment sectors, including biotech, clean tech, telecommunications, material science, and consumer web. He's got a deep experience across a broad set of technologies and industries. He's founded over 10 companies with his partners, which have seen successful exits, and we'll talk about that. So please welcome Avi to DisrupTV.
Hey, how's it going? Great. Thank you so much for having me. Ray, Vala, appreciate the opportunity to talk to the audience today.
Our pleasure.
Hey, no problem, man. Hey, we love having startup CEOs here. So, hey, question for you, and this is really about just how'd you get to Dispatch? Like, what was the business problem that you said, I got to have a solution that got you all excited?
Right, it's a great question, and it's something that you and I and Vala probably experience on a day-to-day basis. The thing that happened was my washing machine broke. I had the same problem that millions of Americans every single day have. I had a
Was it a Maytag Neptune?
It was not. It was a Kenmore. It was a Kenmore. It was a Kenmore washer. But here's what happened. Basically, I had a washing machine that was broken, and a couple of other things had broken in my house, and I was easily able to find a service provider to come and fix them. But for whatever reason, I couldn't get my washing machine fixed. I called up Home Depot, which is where I had bought it, and they said, you're in luck. It's under warranty. So I called up the manufacturer and said, who can come and fix it? They gave me a list of 5 service providers. I called every single one of them, and not surprisingly, nobody called me back. And so I was like, this is just unacceptable. If I can, in some of the companies that I've been involved in, I've been involved in biotech companies. I started a company that converted coal into natural gas. So I said, if I can address or solve those problems, I could address and solve the problem of being able to connect a service provider to a homeowner. And so I, like any good entrepreneur, in 2013, I decided, let me create an Uber for home services. Let me try and create a consumer-facing application that simply addressed the consumer pain and connected homeowners and service providers. So that was my first foray into this space. But what I realized along the way was really hard to build a marketplace, and trying to displace service providers from homeowners and create a new marketplace. I mean, we obviously know the successes of companies like Uber and OpenTable, but it's really challenging to do, and especially in the home services space. And so the big pivot for the company after delighting all of my friends with this dream of building an Uber for home services was, instead of trying to displace them, what I decided was it was much better for me to empower them, to create, you know, the tools and the infrastructure to empower both enterprises and small businesses to help them deliver on, you know, on the on-demand economy, to help empower them to compete in the on-demand economy, as opposed to trying to create a marketplace that tried to displace them.
That's amazing. You know, when I was in your office, again, the vibrancy, the culture, the talent, everything was, you know, spoke to me. And your mission is to help companies apply the concept of on-demand to as many things as possible in their life. So it's winning through convenience. It's winning through empowering brands. What stats? What are some of the things you can share with us regarding dispatch? Like how many? What's the volume of cases and dispatches you guys do? Give us some scale. Give us some insight in your business.
Absolutely. So it's a great question. And you know, when a company first gets started, you don't know you're real until you have, you know, volume, if you have jobs going through your system. So we're doing more than 50,000 jobs a day. So our platform is being used
50,000 jobs a day,
50,000 times a day. There's a homeowner that has a problem. There's a service provider that's going to their home, and 50,000 times a day right now, and it's and rising, you know, dramatically every single day. A homeowner is receiving a text message, a notification saying, "Hey, your appointment has been scheduled. Your technician is on his way." So we are actualizing the vision of the company of creating a modern service experience, an Uber-like experience for home services, without them knowing that dispatches even exist. So we're not displacing, you know, the small business or the enterprise that's involved in that consumer interaction. What we're doing is we're giving them the tools to be able to deliver that modern service experience for the homeowner.
Avi, what happens to this scale as homes become smart homes and you've got all these connected internet things that are going to be sending cases and repair requests and replacement requests? I mean, I anticipate in a very near term that 50,000 could be 5 million. Exactly.
Also, great question. So you can have all of these connected devices. You've got lots of products. You've got the Amazon Echo. You've got smart home devices. You've got wireless thermostats. But when something goes wrong, when something breaks, when your electricity goes out, when your boiler breaks, who are you going to call? Right? What is the connective tissue that's going to say, that triggers the sensor that says something is wrong? Who's going to come fix it? It's not like you can download some software update over the internet that will fix your boiler or fix your washing machine. You've got to send a technician out. So it's that handoff from something that's digital to a service provider that actually has to come into your home, has to manage that, that problem, has to go there and assess what the problem is. That's where, that's where the next sort of step of this process comes. You can connect all of the devices you possibly want, but they're not going to fix themselves. What you need is you still need service providers and technicians to come to your home and fix those things and help walk you through how to either prevent something from happening in the future or to fix something that is broken when it's being, when it alerts you that something is wrong.
That's amazing.
And so we are really kind of, when we talk about the operating system, when we talk about the scale, it's not like we just give our software to small businesses or to the enterprise companies that we work with, and we say go figure it out. We're working alongside them to make sure that every service appointment that takes place, that the notifications are sent and on time. I mean, can you imagine if you got a notification from a technician that they're on their way and they're and they're at your front door? There's a high touch that has to take place where we're managing to a service level agreement where notifications have to be sent out, communication has to exist. Homeowners need to know, am I waiting at home? Can I go to work? Can I show up when he shows up? All of that communication, it's part of that sort of that digital sort of transformation where instead of calling people or waiting for someone at home and and hoping that they show up, now it's about instant communications and being more responsive. And we're enabling that to happen with the stakeholders in the service delivery process. So when you look at a company like Salesforce, where they're managing sort of the first mile of the service delivery process, managing the customer on the CRM side, what Dispatch is doing is we are the last mile of the service delivery process. We're making sure that everybody who's involved in the last mile, the service provider, the technician, the homeowner, all of them are communicating effectively with each other. They're in contact with each other. So if anything goes wrong, immediately a notification gets sent out and somebody can come in to troubleshoot.
So let me get this straight. You basically are giving people given anyone, like let's say a plumber, a repair person, a contractor, the tools to be able to come in and actually be able to run a business like anyone else who's running at the enterprise level.
Absolutely. And we're giving it to them for free. What we believe is that instead of selling software to small businesses and saying, here's a piece of efficiency software for you to run your business and grow your business and pay us $99 a month or whatever, what we're doing is we're saying, we work with all of these large enterprises that have spent tens of millions of dollars building their brand. And so what we're saying is these large enterprises have a connection to these small businesses, and they're going to send work to those small businesses, and they're going to subsidize the distribution of that software to those small businesses. So we're giving it to them for free so that they can manage all of the work that they're getting from those job sources.
So now you also have some very interesting information. So you've got field service management built in here. Are you doing TMS as well, transportation management?
Right. So we're not doing transportation management. We're building a mini monopoly inside of the home services space. So when you think about it, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, appliance repair, all of the core skills that are required to manage your home. So we're collecting all of the data that takes place on the day of service when the technician comes. So it's not only what was the problem, right? But it's also what was the resolution. So all of that becomes our proprietary kind of information around how do you resolve a problem. Maybe you don't send a technician. Maybe the call center agent can just, tell the homeowner what to do, flip a switch, reboot. It's something as simple as that. But that's what we're trying to do, is help create efficiencies around that last mile. You're
basically populating a knowledge base over time. Hopefully that knowledge base gets used in different ways to actually improve service delivery.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you send the right person with the right part at the right time in the right geo with the right skill set and the right performance, you'll always win. You'll manage and you'll exceed customer expectation. And it's one of the reasons why you really can't yet have an Uber for home services, because in the world of transportation, it doesn't matter to you who shows up to your front door and takes you from point A to point B. You just need to make sure that they get there immediately. But if you press a button and a service provider comes immediately, it's likely that he's not the right person, because he probably doesn't have the right part. He probably doesn't have the right skill set. And if he's available, he's definitely not the right person, because all the good
ones are busy. All the good ones are busy.
And that's what we're doing. We're democratizing service logistics in the same way that you don't care how a package gets to your front door. In the services space, you have to lay the infrastructure there first to enable this experience. And over time, you'll be able to get to that point. And that's what we're doing.
So with 50,000 dispatches per day, you're collecting a ton of data.
Yeah.
You're collecting equipment data, consumer data, service provider data. What type of business model innovation or new products and services can you imagine a couple of years from now, given this enormous amount of data that you guys are capturing?
It's really about, when I think about what we're doing for certain companies, it's not about the dispatch brand. It's really about empowering and helping to preserve the enterprise brand. So the companies that we're working with, one of our key strategic partners is ServiceMaster. So what's amazing about that company is they're the largest home services company in the country. They have some of the largest, most recognizable brands in the world, Terminix, Merrymaid. What I'm doing with the data is I'm helping them grow and preserve their businesses at the enterprise level. But at the same time, that the information that we're collecting is helping to grow and build small businesses. So we're all about empowering small companies and large enterprises to grow their businesses, as opposed to, again, as I said, displacing them and trying to create a marketplace that says, oh, you have to come to dispatch in order to connect with them. What I'm saying is I'm going to give them the tools. So all of the data and the performance information and that knowledge base that we're creating is all going to help grow and nurture and preserve the businesses that have literally spent tens of millions of dollars in years building up their brand.
This is really cool. Okay, so now we've got a network. We've got a whole bunch of folks empowered. Now you got data and analysis and insights. Do you do ratings? Are you going to get into that business?
Absolutely. So we are in there. So we're not. It's not like we're getting into the business. We are that business, because at the end of an appointment, you get a text message that says, rate and review your service provider. If it's a 5-star, immediately that review will go to Google or to Yelp or to Facebook, wherever it is you want to send it. If it's a 1 to 3-star, we immediately send it back to the technician or the company or even the enterprise and say, hey, there's a problem. So you get immediate notifications back so that you can create an experience for a homeowner where if there's a problem, we know about it right away.
Wow. Are you also doing live BBB feeds as well? Better Business Bureau feeds?
Not yet. We've got to get them to return our phone calls. Not yet.
Got it. All right. Well, this is cool. So how many employees? What do you have right now?
So we have 50 employees in Boston. We really thought that in order to build our culture, and Vala came by and visited with us. And of course, Ray, we'd love to host you as well. But we've got, a great team in Boston that is dedicated to the mission. It's not just, again, when I walk people through the office, and Vala, can attest to this, it's that, there are people in our company that really believe in the mission. It's not, again, about building software that, that just makes a company more efficient. We're really growing and preserving brands. And it's so empowering when you can see a business grow. There are a couple of companies, we've got these big pictures of service providers on the wall. Companies where, there was one guy in a truck and now he's got 10 people. A person whose child was sick at home and he had to spend more time with him and he was able to grow his business. Now he has 3 franchises. I mean, that's what gets me up every single day. Seeing those success stories on our software.
The day I was at Dispatch, they had a lunch and learn session. And before their mobility architect got up to try to educate the entire team, the rationale they used to justify a roadmap and accept enhancement requests and bug fixes and this, that, and the other, I felt that the importance of explaining the why to everyone in the organization was really powerful. And, when Avi asked, raise your hand if you just started in the last month, to see 5, 6, 7 people raising their hand, there's growth, there's vibrancy. I loved it. So leads to my question. You founded 10 companies, you've sold many of them successfully, and now you're, again, leading a rising star in the startup world. What advice do you have to other entrepreneurs who are thinking about starting a company, or they're in the process of managing a startup?
Yeah, so I think Val, it's a great question. I think that there are ingredients to success, and so I've been a 9-time COO, Chief Operating Officer, and this is my first gig as a CEO. And I think that every company that I've ever been involved in starting has sort of 3 principles, what I would classify as the cornerstones of any business that you start. You have to have, you have to be operating in a very large market. You have to have, a technology or something that differentiates you from everything else that's out there. And you need to have an incredible team. And so taking an idea that's just an idea, it's like everybody says to you, wouldn't it be great if ... How do you go from just an idea to executing on it? You need to have the right team, you need to have the right technology, you need to be in the right market. And if you can tell that story, if you can take that, you can replicate that model in every single company that you have. If any one of those pieces are broken, or if they're weak in any way, then you can't tell that story. You can't get people excited about the business that you're in. And if you can't get people excited, you can't raise money, and then you're going to have a difficult time either getting customers or getting investors. And I think those are the things that are really, really important. And in all the businesses that I've learned, you need to have those ingredients in order to successfully execute on your business.
That's awesome. I thought you were going to say hire a great COO, but oh well.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, for 9 out of 10, that was true. So
9 out of 10, they had a great COO. So
I gotta tell
this
you,
is awesome. We're here with Avi Goldberg, founder and CEO of Dispatch, and you can follow him at Dispatch CEO, and check out the new world of field service management and the democratization of tech and business models. So hey, thanks a lot for being on the show, and welcome to the Alumni Club.
Yes, my pleasure. Thanks. Have a great weekend.
Talk to you soon. Ray, I love the startup CEOs that come on our show, and you can tell the common ingredient amongst all of them is their passion, their inspiration, and really their goal is to serve. That servant leadership is clearly present when you meet and speak with Avi. So we're delighted that he was on our show. All right, we're hopefully able to now have Scott Hartley. We got to get you off mute, Scott. Can you
guys hear me better now?
All right,
look at that.
All right. Hey, we're in business.
Well, we're delighted. Ray and I are really super pumped about having Scott Hartley. He's a venture capitalist and he's an author of an incredible new book that we're going to talk about. He's been a startup advisor. He has been an investment partner on Sand Hill Road. He worked at Google, he worked at Facebook, and Harvard's Berkman Center for Internet and Society. He's written for Inc. He's contributed to Boston Review, Foreign Policy, and many other publications. His new book is called The Fuzzy and the Techie: Why the Liberal Arts Will Rule the Digital World. Now, I'm a double E. I think Ray is chemical or mechanical engineer, so we're really interested in understanding the fuzzy.
Well, I'll balance it out as a political theory.
Yeah, what do I do with my natural sciences degree?
You he's a must follow on Twitter. You can follow Scott on Twitter at Scott E. Hartley, Hartley. Welcome, Scott, to DisrupTV.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Vala. Thanks, Ray. Really great to be on here. And have audio, too.
Well, it turns out that mobile seems to work better than anything else at this moment.
Apparently, I just got to be
no idea why. So, but hey, look, the fuzzy and the techie. What was the driving factor? What made you say, I gotta write a book? People have to know about this.
Yeah, it's a great question. I really found, in venture, I was a partner at Moore Davidale Ventures on Sand Hill, and basically meeting with companies day in and day out, you're bombarded by these different ideas, and you try to coalesce, where is innovation moving? Where is it going? And for me, that process of trying to put my finger on the pulse of what was happening was writing, because it forced me to be somewhat accountable to myself and accountable to the public of saying, if we're talking about IoT or we're talking about a specific domain, here's what I actually think the market's going. Here's, given 10 data points or 20 data points where I think innovations may be moving. And so the writing was really a way to crystallize my own thinking. And then it sort of evolved from, short form articles to longer form articles to having this sort of overwhelming observation that, the narrative of the Vinod Khoslas and the Mark Andreessens that, if you have soft skills, you're doomed. If you've got a liberal arts degree, there's no hope for you. Really, day in and day out, we were meeting with, entrepreneurs coming out of all these different walks of life, people coming from theater arts majors and economics and, and sociology and really the overwhelming observation I had was it had to do with the problem they were solving, the methodology that they had, and were applying, their charisma and ability to build a team around them and, go after a market. And all those things were so important, more than just the computer science degree or just the, engineering degree. And so, I felt compelled to write the book just to sort of myth bust this notion that Silicon Valley is a monolith of only techies. And I think that was partially determined because I, myself was a political science guy. I studied a grad degree in international relations. My whole extended family, in places like Boise, Idaho and Denver, Colorado, they said, well, what the heck do you do at Google? I thought Google was only engineers. How do you work there? And so I think, the broader narrative outside of our sort of insular environments in Silicon Valley and Boston and New York are, it's that Silicon Valley is run by techies. It's this sort of monolithic culture where if you didn't drop out of middle school and know how to write Ruby on Rails, there's no sort of hope for you to start a company. And, increasingly, I think that tools have been democratized in such a way that the building blocks are getting bigger and bigger. And it's more important that you're kind of a full stack integrator and you know where the building blocks are, then you have maybe the ability yourself to code, full stack all the way. If you can kind of point out, like, I want to use TensorFlow for this machine learning stuff, and I want to use this, certain building block for something else. Those are sort of the skills of the CEO. And I think a lot of the visionaries that create these great companies have the ability to kind of put together the team and tell the story in the right way.
That's awesome. I often talk to Ray about how much I struggle with writing. Having said that, I think I've written 50, 60 HuffPo articles this year alone. Yeah. But for me, it's like a root canal process. And I feel great after I'm done, but the whole process is incredibly painful. But as a double E in undergrad and grad, I wish if I could go back in time, I would read more and write more versus all the circuit theory classes and math courses and physics and this, that, and the other. So my advice to my 3 children now is read as much as you can, write as much as you can, because it's going to be critically important no matter what track and career and industry you go, that you can communicate your thoughts effectively and you're accurate and concise. So if the liberal arts helps you train to be more flexible, more empathetic, and be more creative in terms of problem solving, what advice do you have for parents, students, teachers, as a Silicon Valley prominent, VC? What should we be doing differently or thinking about?
I had a great conversation with one of the provosts at Stanford University a couple weeks back, and he has this great metaphor of, basically students these days and parents, I think as well, think of this ballistic path where you're kind of launched like a missile from point A to point B. And once you're in the air, you have very little ability to sort of navigate along the way. You're kind of launching toward that dream job as a product manager at Facebook, and you think, okay, the only way to get there is to launch up the EE or CS launching pad and go in that direction for the next 4 years. And his metaphor, which I really like, is thinking about education not as a plane ticket from point A to point B, but thinking about it as a passport where you're trying to get stamps from all these different places. And so, if you're really passionate about EE and CS, that's great. But you should also take a philosophy class. You should also take, a class in international relations. Take that class that forces you to write the 20-page paper that scares you, right? And, for someone like me that, I don't struggle as much with the writing parts, but to do a problem set that, may take you an hour would take me all day. And so, really to force yourself out of your comfort zone. I think that's sort of the thing, is collect the stamps from all the different geographies and try to touch all these different geographies and backgrounds and methodologies. Because I don't know if you guys saw, there was a great post in Quartz a few days back by one of the earliest engineers at both Pinterest and Quora, a woman named Tracy Chow. And she made this great point that some of the earliest decisions in product direction for Quora, for example, were these philosophical decisions of, are people inherently good or are they inherently bad? Because if they're bad, we have to set up all these queues to basically moderate content. If we assume that they're good, we allow them to post directly to the site. And these are kind of fundamental design decisions at the very outset of product development, where the PMs and engineers were asking these broadly philosophical questions, looking around the room and said, unfortunately, none of us took a philosophy class, or we maybe would have more insight into some of these decisions. Or, even on the content moderation side of things, should they capitalize and make sure punctuation and spelling is correct? If you take a metaphor from sort of urban sociology or criminology, the broken windows phenomenon of, if you fix the broken windows, people start acting in more, more in line, in good behavior, proper behavior. And similarly on Wikipedia, similarly on Quora, I think, some of these principles where you take something that worked in urban New York City to clean up, parts of New York City, it'll work the same way in an online context. And so some of those kind of abstract metaphors where, take somebody studying sociology or having that inkling to provide that insight in a product meeting, in an eng meeting. So I think if you can have people that have these broad passports of experiences, they're going to be more productive, whether they're an engineer or they're somebody from the liberal arts.
Awesome analogy.
No, that's a great analogy. We're here talking to the Financial Times Business Book of the Month author, Scott Hartley. And we are talking about really the edges of really what's happening. So what you're also talking about here is really the fact that, we're seeing folks need to connect across different dots. At Constellation, one of the things that we use is we use a pestle methodology for a futurist framework to connecting politics, economics, society, environment, technology, legislative forces. And what we try to do is bring that together because it's those larger pictures and connecting those dots. Have you seen folks go from techie to fuzzy and fuzzy and techie back? Like isn't Andreessen really a philosopher these days?
That's a great question, because I would say that guys like Vinod Khosla and Mark Andreessen have become,
Vinod just wants me to keep me off his property. That's a different problem. I respect his property rights.
His beach, yeah. Yeah, I know we all like Half Moon Bay, right? So, I think that is true. And increasingly as tech, Mark Andreessen talks about software eating the world. And I think the flip of that is, software is feeding the world in the sense that we have to have people from all these different domains and expertise and background contributing now, providing the problems to tech. Because, I think Kara Swisher from Recode, she had this great quote about San Francisco entrepreneurs. And she said, it's basically assisted living for millennials. They're basically trying to replicate every service that their mother once provided and now is not providing. So, you want laundry delivered, you want food delivered, you want dogs, walked by themselves.
Mom is a service.
Snowflakes is a service, man. It's snowflakes is a service. Come on, grow some grit. No, but it's a great point. It's a great point. I mean, all these things are being built around these edges, and it's a question of how do we see that broader picture? So so fuzzies become techies, and techies can become fuzzies. Does that call for a different type of education? People keep talking about STEM. Should we move to STEAM?
STEAM is great. I think I was talking to a PhD classicist from Yale yesterday morning who has sort of maneuvered his way into tech. And he delivers lectures on how Hannibal was the original sort of startup general with very limited resources. He was able to nearly conquer the Roman Empire. He's delivered inside sales lectures on like Roman rhetoric and what Cicero did to convey, to create sort of dust in the eyes of the jury to convict somebody of a crime. Yeah, and so I think there are all these learnings that can kind of cross over. In the book, I talk a little bit about Steve Blank in one of the courses that he's rolled out at Stanford, but now it's rolled out across 13 or 14 different universities. And what they've done is they've taken the problems from Department of Defense and from USAID and from the State Department, and they've gone out to all these different military groups, parts of diplomacy, and they've said, what are your most intractable problems you guys can't figure out how to solve? And let's export those problems to Silicon Valley. Let's create teams of political scientists and engineers working together to try to solve these problems over 10-week sprints. And so, in the quarter system, they, basically the class, they bring the problems from sort of private sector, from people that really understand these domains. And then they're creating these sort of synthesized fuzzy techie teams, if you will, to try to hack against those problem sets. And I think, we could do the same from agriculture. We could do the same from a lot of different industries. But I think, STEAM is an interesting example of that. Somebody else told me an acronym called HEAT, which was, it's sort of bringing together. I can't remember all the different terms behind HEAT, but I think there are other ways that we could sort of connect the dots and make sure that people have all the different stamps from these various sort of backgrounds and worlds in their passport by the time they graduate. In the follow-up to that, I think we have to start thinking about a degree title. If a slip of paper says computer science or it says anthropology, it's not as if one is, got this carte blanche to relevance forever. Because as in computer science, the languages are changing every few years. You constantly have to be upskilling, considering the newest domains and form factors that people are building for. And same with the anthropologist, that you can't just study that and pretend that the internet doesn't exist. You got to upskill in some of the tech literacy as well. So I think thinking about education not as a four-year degree, but as as sort of that's the entry point. But then we all have to continually use things like Treehouse and General Assembly and Codecademy and and Coursera and Udacity and all these great platforms that fortunately most of them are free. Most of them provide great coursework that's pretty accessible regardless of kind of socioeconomic background. And so thinking about how do we provide those bigger opportunities for people to continue to upskill and continue to sort of invest in their education, not just graduate in 4 years and pretend like now I'm a college educated person, I therefore am entitled to this for the rest of my life, even though the world changes dramatically.
Sure. So Scott, 10 years ago, if you looked at the 10 largest companies by market cap, there was only one tech company. And today, I think there's 7, starting with Apple and Alphabet and Microsoft and Amazon and Facebook and Tencent and so on and so forth. So data is behind a common thread with all these most valuable companies in the world. It's like the new oil, some people say. And that leads to algorithms. And that leads to this incredible surge we have seen in machine learning, deep learning, natural language processing, and all the data scientists under this AI umbrella. So as we see this blended world of machines and people, and we see this accelerated path of going from augmenting intelligence to autonomous intelligence, you would think the fuzzy part is going to be critically important, because you also have this need to balance transparency and how these algorithms are going to drive decisions without human input, potentially. So what are your thoughts in terms of the importance of the fuzzy continuing to grow even more so in this AI digital economy that we're a part of?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think part of the other impetus for the book was this sort of drumbeat of STEM education being the only sort of relevant education for the future. And I'm not disputing, by any means the need for technical literacy and engagement with these tools. But I think exactly as you say, they really beg these broader questions as well. Just because something is put into ones and zeros, just because it's transcribed into something we call an algorithm, or we throw machine learning against it, doesn't suddenly make it objective. If you look at inside an algorithm, all the sort of probabilistic determinations, the sensitivities that the engineer decides, many of these things are they're malleable and they're sort of subjective based on the team that's providing them. And so I think, you know, the bigger questions of who's in the room, how do we create sort of a plurality of methodology and background, to, you know, interestingly with this woman, Tracy Chow, we did a panel with Kevin Delaney from Quartz this past Monday. And she said, you know, oftentimes it's marginalized communities, you know, whether it's an LGBT BT community, or it's, you know, it's a woman in tech, or it's a minority, you know, in tech, who is squarely in the quote unquote edge case for a particular, you know, a particular technology that makes the case for the product team to actually deal with that. So she said, you know, at Quora and at places like Pinterest, where there could be something, you know, that's malicious content, it was generally the person that was most affected by that content that brought it to the surface and made it a priority on the product roadmap. So it really kind of shows that, you know, we've got to build these pluralistic teams, you know, not just based on background, but also based on, you know, all forms of diversity, because those inputs really, you know, prioritize the roadmap, and those are, you know, how we make these most important decisions in our products going forward. So, you know, as you say, as tech becomes something that touches all these different domains, from, you know, the Tesla car once was called a car company, now it's a tech company, right? And, you know, we see this across every different world. Pretty soon, you know, a John Deere tractor is going to be a tech company, not an ag company. And so, you know, we've got to have this kind of plurality of backgrounds and inputs to make sure that the data and algorithms and things that are just baked into these black box, you know, tech, you know, something that's summarized as, you know, uniformly techie is still has the sort of human inputs behind it.
As just the ethics of autonomous cars and the decisions that the algorithm might have to make in scenarios where it could potentially be life and death, the driver or, you know, the traffic. It's fascinating how you know, resolve those complex scenarios.
It is. Hey, and you know, we're here with the finalists for the 2016 Financial Times McKinsey Bracken Bauer Prize. So tell me, what are some of the cool fuzzy techie combos that didn't make the book, but if you had to write it again, it would be in the book right now?
You know, it's a great question, because a book like any startup, you know, it has all sorts of things on the cutting room floor. You start going one direction.
Trust me, it sucks. By the time the book comes out 2 years later, you're like, oh, I wish I read about that. So what would you add? What would you add in there?
So one company that I love that didn't make the book, but I wrote, you know, significant portions about, was somebody who used to work for Vinod Khosla. His name is Shoaib Makani. And Shoaib is a political science major from London School of Economics. He's a Pakistani-American guy from Texas who worked for Vinod and then left to start a trucking company. Probably the most unsexy thing you could have done in 2013, right? And he left because he had an understanding of the way regulation was going to change. And I think he saw this opportunity for interim technology that wasn't, you know, the self-driving truck that may be on the roads in 5 or 10 years. But what he saw in the interim was, you know, a need for electronic logging devices on engines that could report sort of when a truck was, you know, according to regulation, and the driver was sleeping or the driver was awake, when the truck was loaded, when it was unloaded. And so he saw this confluence of regulatory change, decreasing sensors, and built a company that is, you know, doing incredibly well. He was somebody that sort of had a passion through his family, understood trucking, sort of saw the big size of the market. And, you know, I think when people all questioned, why are you leaving, you know, a Sand Hill Road venture capital firm working for a billionaire to start a trucking company, he really had the foresight to say, you know, this is something that's changing big time over the next five or so years, and basically skated into a change in regulation that, you know, has put him in pole position to, I think, own this market for the foreseeable future until, you know, maybe eventually we'll get to self-driving trucks. But I think in the interim, Shoaib is going to win. So.
Yeah, no, he's got the #1 ELD solution, and keep trucking. So definitely a very cool startup that we kind of, trust me, I look at some interesting startups. He was on my list. So that's awesome. Hey, this is wonderful. We are following Scott Hartley. You can follow him at SCOTTEHARTLEY. Former Sand Hill Road investor, now turned author, now turned actually very, very cool fuzzy philosopher and tech conduit. So, hey, thanks a lot for being on the show.
Thanks, guys. This is great.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Oh my God. And what else to top off today? Our awesome producer has lined us up with some of the most awesome people.
I feel so fuzzy now.
Which car? Your car looks like my car. What's going on here? No, it's kidding.
We expect a lot of fuzziness in the next segment. No.
Well, you know, I'm kind of like, that's what I've been telling my students at Temple, the same thing. I'm like, take an anthropology class, take other stuff.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I'm telling my 3 kids. So it's our pleasure this is our cleanup hitter spot. And we have our first ballot Hall of Fame to Disrupt TV show as our next guest, Larry Dignan, editor-in-chief of ZDNet and Smart Planet, as well as editorial director of ZDNet's sister site, Tech Republic. He's been covering technology since 1995, publishing Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and many more. And you can follow, he's a must follow on Twitter at LDIGNAN. Welcome, Larry, to Disrupt TV. Where are you?
Hey, how's it going? I'm in Delaware on the way to Rehoboth Beach and have my smartphone just kind of balanced on the steering wheel, so hopefully it doesn't fall over in the next 20 minutes or so. That's the goal.
Well, hey, we're car to car here today. It's amazing. Another mobile version of Disrupt TV. So lots of stuff this week for summer. What the heck was going on news-wise? Where do you want to start? Do you want to go with Prime Day? Do you want to go with Infor, Verizon? I mean, it's been crazy.
Let's do Prime Day, because I got a little wound up here, because you do Prime Day, it's a big sale, everything's going on. You know, it's about the customer data, getting Prime subscribers, all that. But what really annoys me now is everything Amazon does, we think is going to conquer whatever they're doing. Whatever industry, whatever. Ever since they bought Whole Foods, we're all smoking crack. They're going to kill Walmart. They're going to destroy every software cloud company on the planet.
Apple, right? With Echo.
Yeah, I mean, it's too much. Enough. I mean, well, okay, Amazon's kicked ass, right? But we all seen this movie before, or at least I have, because I'm old. But Microsoft, remember, they used to enter all these categories, and we were like, ooh, they're going to kill company XYZ. No. Does anybody use Skype anymore? Here and there. They screwed up the design.
Oh, God,
they're
mobile
not doing
Skype sucks so bad. I've never seen so many reviews about mobile Skype sucking. Oh, my God. The new Skype is horrible.
Don't get me wound up on Skype for Business. That thing's never worked every time I've tried it. But I digress. So that was going to be a category killer, right? Whether it's Microsoft, Google, you know, like, I don't know, are we flying Google drones around? Are we in their autonomous cars? Now, they've done good work. Well, it's a science project for now, right? You know, has Google done a ton beyond, as far as making money that falls out of the sky, beyond the ad model? It's still the ad model. So when you look at this, it's, yeah, I guess even back in the day, we probably talked about IBM entering new categories and someone's going to get run over. That didn't happen either, right? So I just look at Amazon and I go, and this isn't Amazon's doing, it's media people who can't cook up another storyline, right?
Media people.
It's clickbait.
Media
it's
people.
Clickbait.
Yeah, but
I am one, but they annoy me.
But Larry, would anybody imagine 5 years ago that Netflix's biggest competitor would be Amazon? They're getting into video content.
No.
You wrote in your article that they've gotten into content and video in both physical and digital, in advertising and hardware, and of course the Whole Foods, as you noted in your article, accelerates this media's notion that watch out, when Amazon gets into a market, they're going to crush you.
My guess is we should amend that to they're going to do well. I don't think they're going to crush.
That doesn't make a headline, Larry. That doesn't make a headline.
You look at Goldman Sachs today. They upgraded Walmart, and you look at some of the things Walmart's doing with the Jet acquisition. They're moving faster.
E-commerce.
And you look at like Amazon bought Whole Foods, and combined they'll have what, 3% of the grocery market? Walmart's the big dog, and will remain the big dog in the foreseeable future. Right? Best case, we get to a duopoly or something. Now there'll be a lot of retail collateral damage, but I argue that some of these retailers were idiots in the first place, and kind of got what they had coming to them. So
hey, they got a great new CIO, Clay Johnson. So So they're definitely cleaning stuff up as well and getting stuff built. But here's what I don't get, Larry. Think about this. People spent like $15 to buy an Echo Dot so that Echo Dot could cause them to buy more crap that they don't want and have Amazon listening into their household.
$1 billion in one day.
That's the beauty of the model. Actually, the real thing with Echo Dot, they paid $15 to be annoyed because it won't stay connected to Wi-Fi. Drives me crazy.
All right, let's move on to Wendy's.
I've had more problems with the Echo Dot. It's cheaper for a reason. I wound up buying another Echo for $79. I'm like, I'm in. But
you were the cross sell. You're the reason they got all those Prime members to buy again.
And I tell you, all those whole food buyers, that's the demographic that's going to have an Echo in their house. And now you've got access to all this, upper scale, shopping consumer demographic, and it's good. I think that's the magic that will hopefully.
That's a great point, Val. Great data. There's great data there. So
yeah, it's great data. It's the other point we're missing though. I think they had to buy Whole Foods because they need a physical presence.
Yeah.
Well, they just build out one, right? So I think that's another key point to add in. But my whole take is that, okay, Amazon's not going to destroy every category it enters.
Yeah.
And to think they are is a little crazy. But
one of my good friends in retail up there, he basically pointed out something to me a few weeks ago that in the history of retail, very few people have made omni-channel work, and companies that have tried to go digital and physical at the same time have lost $1 trillion in the market over the last 10 years of market cap value. So if that gives you anything to worry about. But let's talk about Wendy's. That's
a really bad commercial for all those people pitching omni-channel.
It is a horrible commercial, and it's sadly true.
All that money spent on software for that.
So Wendy's or Workday?
Fast food now. Wendy's.
Fast food or HR software? Where do you want to go?
Let's do Workday.
All right.
Workday's opening their platform.
Woo!
Wow.
Break out the champagne.
Woo-hoo! Nice move. Totally get it. Don't quite buy the blog post where they're like, well, we kept it closed because, we had to get it right. And I buy some of that. I think the reality though, is all these clouds are connecting together. And if you don't allow other things to connect to it and you're all closed, you're kind of screwed over time, right? Because I just don't think people are into the monolithic cloud stack or so. And you look at companies like ServiceNow, right? They kind of went the platform route. And people are using they're using ServiceNow for some HR tools. They're using ServiceNow for other things than IT. That's what the Workday really
There was a competitive risk if they didn't do it, is what you noted in your article. And you also noted that customers, as you said, are increasingly integrating, using third-party apps in the mix and matching different clouds. So this had to happen, essentially, is your thesis.
It's definitely a lesson.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice move, but it's also a defensive one. And we'll see where it goes.
I agree with Larry. Yeah. It's a lesson learned from previous companies that both Anil and Dave had founded, that when they'd closed out their ecosystem, made things very proprietary, at some point in time, they got boxed out. And it's definitely there. But it's good to see it open. I think a lot of folks have been wanting to build on top of it, expand on and what they have. So interesting.
Another article you wrote regarding platform was IBM's platform based on Watson delivering services. So it's using the Watson IBM service platform for proactive automation and fixing issues, analyzing content, guiding people to, resolving. Is that another example of a platform play where companies trying to use artificial intelligence to augment, intelligence with?
Yeah, I mean, well, IBM, they're going to put Watson damn near everything they have. But yeah, the move makes sense though, right? Because if you're doing services,
yeah,
a lot of services is about automation now.
Yes.
And if they can work in Watson and all that, it works out pretty well. If you can cut out some workers, some business processes, make things smoother, it's all good.
This is our discussion with Avi on our first guest. I mean, think about if there's 50,000 dispatches a day and there are rating systems involved and diagnostics and forensics information being exchanged, you're sitting on a ton of data. So apply some AI, machine learning to it, and find more optimal service delivery models. I think it's a sector that's ripe for disruption in terms of how to best use technologies like AI.
Yeah, and just to go back to that first Amazon rant point, why are we talking to dispatch? Because Amazon's just going to kill them in the future anyway. You know what I mean? It's a prime example of why we've gone batshit crazy over the Amazon thing.
And in this week's cybersecurity breach, who do we talk about?
Yeah, exactly.
So. What about this thing in Verizon, where about millions of Verizon customer records exposed in security labs? So what's going on?
This was one of our scoops by Zach Whitaker, and what it shows more than anything, like numbers aside, Verizon says 6, the researcher says 14 million. What it really shows is that you have your first party data, but then you have these trusted partners that touch it. And you can't shut them out, right? Because you got to get stuff done. But it just shows how the security chain, it's, there's humans, and then there's other companies, and there's just a lot of folks going on here.
Thank you, nice.
Yeah, so I think the lesson here is it's not really a knock on Verizon or even nice, because it's like one employee kind of screwed it up. But generally speaking, you have to watch your partners as much as you would watch your own data.
Or just get rid of the humans. You'll be okay. Just get rid of the humans.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it's really like, I think the outcome I'd like to see from that Verizon story is that CIOs and CISOs and all those types, they actually look at it and go, all right, so how are we governing our partners?
Yeah.
Right? And what do they have going on? Right? It's one thing, like if you have, I don't know, you pick any supply chain, right? Pick anything. The data's probably touched by a dozen companies.
Oh, yeah.
Are they all in line with what you're doing or what you want? So it gets very, it's very tricky. So I think the big takeaway there isn't really like, there's a takeaway larger than, another week, another data breach. It's really, you got to manage your partners.
And as you talk about platform as a service, whether it's Workday or IBM or whomever, when other stakeholders are building capabilities on top of yours, yeah, there's going to be a ton of touch points. And does the security governance take in consideration the disparate set of practices that govern data security and privacy? That's a complex landscape. So I imagine there'll be more scenarios like what we discovered here, again, as the platform economy grows. Speaking of CIOs, you did talk to, and you featured the CIO at Wendy's, David Trem, and he said there was a line in your blog that said, and this was Tim talking, that if you do digital transformation right, it can create stickiness for the customer experience. What does that mean?
It means they want customers and they want them to keep coming back, like every other company. What's interesting about that quote, though?
Is that the promise of digital transformation? Just repeat business.
At its core level, I think so.
Yeah.
On the grand scale, the problem I have with digital transformation is everybody's got a different definition. Yeah. Digital transformation is a little like porn. You know it when you see it. And other than that, it's a little fluffy vendor speak. But it kind of is, right? Or pick your Supreme Court case, right? You know when you see it. He does it well, right? When you go, oh, that's well done. That's probably digital transformation. It's not. I don't think it's something you buy in a box from SAP or whoever. Right?
I like two of those.
That's a trap we'll fall into.
So are self-service kiosks a cost-cutting measure, or is it really an element of digital transformation in the food industry?
It's both. When you look at, I'll go into a fast food place right now, and I'd prefer a kiosk.
Yeah.
It's just faster.
Yeah, right. And on the back end,
there's still employees there.
No, but on the back end, it's really cool, right? Because what it does is it sends the signals, it keeps the orders in check faster, it breaks down the queues, it does work. But I feel like they're playing catch up. McDonald's has all these kiosks, as you've seen them, are all popped up. These things are like, like 70-foot like LED screen, like 70-foot LCD screens that you just touch, right? Popping up there.
It has to be a Starbucks model. I want to order it on my mobile phone, get to the inside the restaurant, pick it up, and go out.
Yeah.
The difference with Starbucks is Starbucks had a lead. They were out front.
Absolutely.
Now we're seeing the level set where everybody's gonna have a mobile app, everybody's gonna have a kiosk, and like I have a Starbucks app. Am I gonna get a Dunkin' Donuts app? Maybe. No. I'll think about it though. It won't be a no-brainer.
Are you a Dunkin' guy or a Starbucks guy?
Yeah, no, I have both.
I'm both.
I have both.
Yeah, I'll do both. Coffee, I'm probably more Dunkin'. I can't do Starbucks. It's just too strong.
Yeah, well, I just read an article. Folks that drink coffee 3 times a day live longer. Just to let you know. I don't know. I think it was Time Magazine.
Yeah, I drink coffee 3 times a day. I'm getting a headache. It's a given.
Oh man, one more. Let's do SAP and Leonardo IoT. So where do you see that going? Is it all vaporware fluff? Is it the real deal, or is it like, let's name a new platform every Sapphire?
Well, I have AI name fatigue. I think like
who's winning?
Luckily for Salesforce,
male, female, or gender neutral?
Right, Salesforce just got under the wire. But what? Infor had Coleman this week, and then what's the other one? The other one was OpenText and Magellan. Like, I'm done. Stop naming shit. Just call it AI. I'm good.
Computer.
What were we talking about after the AI name rant?
Leonardo. SAP Leonardo.
Just remember Einstein. Forget about the rest.
Yeah. I mean, I think directionally what SAP is doing with Leonardo makes a lot of sense. I do like the fact they call it a digital innovation platform instead of digital transformation. That'll give them some protection when we all get sick of digital transformation. I'm very curious about the IoT stuff. I think it's interesting because they haven't, they weren't out in front with their IoT stuff. Yet they control a lot of stuff through HANA and a lot of the analytics stuff. So I'm not really sure. I mean, I get it conceptually, but I think the jury's still out on where it heads, right? It's not totally clear to me just yet.
Well, I hope they control their indirect access issue, especially as we talk about things like IoT and all the other stuff that's happening with streaming analytics. So
right. Love the Leonardo name, though.
It's a great name.
My next dog might be named Leonardo. I don't know.
Instead of Fetch, it'll be a Raspberry Pi call.
Well, say you had a really big yard. You got 6 puppies. You could all just name them after AI characters at this point.
And we'll leave it with that. We are with Larry Dignan. You can follow him LDIGNAN at ZDNet, editor-in-chief, commentator extraordinaire, and ready for the beach on a Friday. So thanks a lot for joining us.
He's our #1 choice as co-host of DisrupTV if either Ray and I are ever not able to make it. So you're terrific. Thank you so much.
And Larry, we got to talk.
Thanks a lot, guys.
We got to talk at some point. We're going to announce.
Have a good weekend.
150. So we'll chat with you. All right. Take care.
Thanks.
Woohoo! Oh my God, that is a fast hour at a rest stop here.
that was awesome. Avi and Scott and Larry. I mean, this is why Fridays. This is where the experts come and share. And we've crossed over 160 guests on DisrupTV in less than a year and a half. So we're really grateful for those who watch and share our content. Speaking of great content, next week we start again with an extraordinary CEO of one of the fastest growing startups in Canada, Michael Litt, co-founder and CEO of Vidyard. And Michael is an extraordinary CEO, and he'll be with us. We have Angela Zutaburn. She's the VP at Booz Allen Hamilton and co-author of the book, The Mathematical Corporation. So we're going to talk a lot about math, and we'll continue the STEM discussions with Angela. And we end with John Reed, co-founder of Diginomica. So another jam-packed drop science day next week for us on DisrupTV. Ray, closing remarks.
And John is also a no holds barred commentator as well. So we're
like Larry. Yeah,
like Larry. So we are at episode 71. Thanks, everyone. If you're a startup CEO, if you're a founder, if you're a CXO, and you want to share something, please reach out to us. We're happy. We're booking all the way out to September and October, but we definitely have a spot for you. So thanks a lot. If it's Friday, it's Disrupt TV.
Safe drive, Ray. Talk to you.
See you around. Bye.